morning, YouTube. This video is about the difference between warriors and soldiers. Before there were soldiers, there was warriors. You know, all people all over the earth lived as hunter-gatherers at a period of time. And of course, when you have populations of people living as hunter-gatherers, eventually you have scarcity of resources, which is like deer, mammoths, elk, reindeer, even like small game like rabbits, turkeys, pheasants. So what ends up happening is food becomes scarce and people have fights over hunting territories. So the warriors were like a group of hunters that decided that there was an imminent risk to their village from a raid from another tribe, because they knew that the game was getting scarce and they knew that that tribe was probably going to try to take territory. So they set themselves apart from their hunting duties and went to defensive strategies and forming war parties, which were like alliances with each other. You know, the men in the village would get together and say, look, you're the strongest, you're the fastest, you're, you know, really skilled at archery, so we're going to team up, we're going to form a defense system for our village. And that was like the beginning. That was, you know, ancient man's tribal existence, and the first warriors came about in that way. Soldiers were like later on in history, when agriculture took over and there was kings and queens and empires and dynasties, and the wealthy class, the wealthy farming families that became rulers of the land through land ownership. They eventually ended up forming armies and recruiting soldiers and basically paying peasants to be the strong arm for them so that they could go and enforce their land ownership. There's a big difference between a warrior and a soldier. Just keep that in mind, and that's what this video was about. Is sometimes you have to really go back into the past and look at history to truly understand where we are now in 2023. And I guess why I was thinking of this was because I was watching the videos of the soldiers, the Russian soldiers in Ukraine, and just looking at the kind of blank sadness that I see in their eyes. You know, there was one video where a Russian soldier shot a Ukrainian soldier, and he actually like went over to him and started patching him up, like bandaging his wounds and stuff, and you could just feel the energy in that video that he didn't really want to kill that guy, and he kind of felt guilty, and he was patching him up to give him a chance to live. I mean, I think in those situations, you realize that there's some things that when you're young and you're naive, you think that going to war and shooting machine gun and being self-righteous, or like being encouraged by your society to go out and kill the enemy. When you really get on the battlefield, you realize that your enemy looks like you, and you start to question everything you ever learned about this world. And that's why I hope that if you're listening to my videos, that you really dive deep into history, but not just from the mainstream narrative of things, but look at both sides of history. You know, because sometimes when you read the history of the victor, it's not really the truth. Sometimes you have to view the history of the losing side. Like in Native American history, how many of you have ever read the book Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee? Because that book will reveal a lot to you about history. And it tells the story of what it was like to be on the Indian side of the battles and what they experienced. You know? So I suggest, if you really want to read a good book, I'd read that book. It's by D. Brown, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Anyway, I hope you have a good day and enjoy the weather. It's like 80 degrees out. See you.